Hello, hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Lois Kofi. Happy Friday to you. I'm super excited to be here today with, I think, what could be a very, very timely message for our country, for our world. I am the founder of this podcast called healthyandwealthyandwise.com, and it was created and designed really for everybody. However, specifically, I'm a sales trainer. I coach salespeople to take the fear out of selling, to sell with excellence, and especially right now, to be able to learn how to sell during difficult times. Like we're finding ourselves here in 2020. Who knew that COVID-19 was going to come into our universe? And I think at some point we have like close to 40 million people unemployed. And I really wanted this podcast to be for you. I really wanted this podcast to be inspiration, education, and empower you to be and live and have the best results for you personally, professionally, physically, financially, spiritually, and especially right now, mentally and emotionally. We're going to talk about that today. So again, my podcast is Healthy and Wealthy and Wise. So each week I interview a different expert, someone who I know, like, and trust, or who I've even personally had great results with, or have had a relationship for a long time. And I know that they can provide a message for you that's different than me. And so we covered health, we've covered wealth, and today I'm excited to have my friend, longtime friend, Dean, I forget, was it 2002, 2003? Who's counting? We don't want to tell our age and date ourselves here, but we've known each other for almost 20 years. And even though I've moved around and we've had life and journeys take us other places, he's always been a good friend and one of those people that I respect and admire for a lot of reasons. We both love physical fitness. We both trained and have done marathons and competed at a high level. I think you're actually probably still faster than me, Dean, which I'm competitive.
Yes, you are.
And so I wanted to bring you in today, and we scheduled this weeks ago. But I do want to be cognizant of what's going on in our country right now, and how, you're going to share with us how to develop mental and emotional toughness, resilience. And so first and foremost, I want to pay homage to George Floyd in Minneapolis, and just, have our hearts and thoughts are with his family and just the whole city of Minneapolis and all the cities across the country that are going through a lot of pain and anguish and fear right now. And so I don't think it's a coincidence that our topic today has something to do with that mental and emotional side of ourselves that's so important for our performance in life, for our relationships, and how do we move forward? How do we go from here? So I just want to let you guys know that we will have Q&A later. So please take notes. I want this to be of huge benefit and gift to you. If you're tuning in live, feel free to hashtag live comment below. And if you're watching the replay, hashtag replay. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce Coach Dean, who is, again, from Scottsdale, Arizona. And we know from your title, you're a certified mental games coach. But tell us more about Dean and about how you got to be this title, this person, and where you're at right now.
Thank you, Lois. I appreciate it. And yeah, we do go back a long way, early 2000s. So my name is Dean Hebert, and I'm in Scottsdale, Arizona. I am a certified mental game coach, but a lot of people say, well, what is that, right? I teach and I coach those peak performance strategies and techniques and those skills for performers of all kinds, whether it's an athlete, which is predominant what I work with, but also it's from athletic fields to stages, from classrooms to boardrooms. If it's about performance, then I coach and teach those skills, those strategies of how do we get there versus merely going through the motions or being okay or decent and not really optimizing our skill set. My background's in sports psychology. That's what I did my postgraduate work in. And then through a certification program in applied sports psychology, actual mental game training, postgraduate. And so I've been doing this full-time for about 17 years and part-time for a good 5 to 8 years prior to that.
Awesome. And what do you love about what you do? I mean, our passion, I believe our vocation, our career is our calling. It's our passion. You know, hopefully you love what you do and you do what you love. That's always what I talk to people about. And I know that you do, but why do you love what you do? Can you share your why? You know, what
Yeah.
is driving you to do what you do?
Um, First, what I will tell you is it's one of those cliched responses. It's making a difference. So, but with that, what I'll tell you is in my own personal experiences, growing up, I never knew these skills. And so I didn't master a lot of these human interaction skills, these coping skills, these things that made me a better person, a better performer. I never learned them. I didn't learn them. And I was a collegiate athlete, and I still didn't learn them. And it wasn't until I had gone to my graduate work, well into my 20s, before I started to learn them, and thereafter. And then I realized, oh my God, I should have learned these when I was like 10, 12, and that would have helped me through so many things. So for me, in part, it's my experience and wanting to say, you know what, I don't want someone else to go through some of the pain, the personal pain or whatever that I went through. And if you knew these strategies, if you practiced these things, it would lessen it. It would help you cope far better, and you'd come out a little bit shinier on the other end.
Oh my gosh, you hit on a chord with something, because I just introduced you to my 11-year-old, right? And
Mm-hmm.
they've gone through their own trauma.
Yeah.
My daughter this past week with COVID, and we've moved across country. There's all these life-changing events, and she hit a wall after she said goodbye to her teacher, and she just had a emotional,
Mm-hmm.
breakdown. And seeing that just reminds me of, oh my gosh, schools don't always teach these tools. And you hit the nail on the head, because we all go through trauma, and what we take forward stays with us, right? Wherever you go, there you are.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know you're gonna share exactly some steps, right, on how people can be more emotionally fit.
Mm-hmm.
And but do you have an example or a testimony for any age? Have you worked with kids with this stuff?
Well, it's interesting you say that. Uh, Probably 2/3 of all my athletes that I work with are between the ages of 12 and 18.
Okay.
So that is predominance is I work with youth athletes. And what I tell parents when I work with them for their on-field performance is that I'm teaching them not just soccer mental game skills or running or whatever it is. I'm teaching them life skills. And I want them to use these techniques and these strategies in the classroom, with their friends, and at home. So I make it a very holistic approach in trying to reach that group, because I know this isn't just about sports, and 99% of those kids are not going to go on to be a professional player. Everyone wants to, at those ages, but the fact is that's not, and this is bigger than scoring a basket or a goal.
Yeah, that's so powerful. Do you have a testimonial? Do you mind sharing of like a before and after of someone that you worked with that stands out to you?
Um, Boy, pick one. Yeah, one woman I worked with who I worked with, she was 15 at the time, a synchronized swimmer, and she was at the elite level and struggling at the time with her coach and the kind of things that were going on with the team and all the politics that were within her sport. And by the time we were done, she had developed a lot of the coping skills. Didn't change the issues. It changed how she reacted to all these issues and how she coped and how she learned to thrive in these issues. And she was on our U.S. national synchronized Olympics synchronized swimming team. So she's great. I'm still in touch with her to this day. I know. Well, here's one that's academic. A young lady from the University of Arizona was working to go into grad school at USC, and I believe it was in the journalism department. And she couldn't get her GRE scores up. She was a straight A student, but it was test anxiety that got to her. And so I worked with her on stress management, test anxiety. Not even test-taking strategies. I'm not talking about those test-taking strategy stuff. We're talking about managing the composure going in so you can think clearly within an exam. And she raised her score by I forgot what the exact numbers were, but she went from way below, not even being considered, to way above, demonstrating her true intelligence and learning. And she did get accepted to that graduate program in USC after initially being denied.
That's awesome. That's amazing. Well, and I know since it's timely, and I mentioned this early on in the call, that I wanted to get your thoughts on, and I don't want to make this a political conversation. Okay, so we won't go there.
No.
but how do you, as a certified mental games coach, how do you see COVID is one beast, but with what happened in Minneapolis, and then of course all of the looting and the fires and the anger and the protests, I mean, what is going on for those people and their reactions to all this, you know, as opposed to what those examples you just gave? Obviously those people, they didn't have the tools, then you gave them the tools, they applied the tools, and they became better. I think that's one huge thing. I have compassion and empathy for everyone involved in Minneapolis right now, because if you're in pain and that fight or flight thing kicks in, and this is how you react, what's going on for them in their mindset? Can you paint a picture for that?
So let me give a couple of thoughts here. Often when we have a lot of that kind of anxiety, fear and such, fear and the anxiety and the stress goes with it, and the fear is usually generated out of thinking about the future. What if I were in that situation? What's going to happen next? Will there be any consequences? What if I'm out on the street? What would happen if that was my neighbor? Blah, blah. You know, all these what if kind of things, and projecting into the future. And it causes a lot of anxiety. Even when we're talking about COVID and the whole thing here, it's that projection. Should I go out? What would happen if I went to the store without a mask? Blah, blah. What if we have a family gathering? It's the fear of the what ifs. So think about that. It's living in the future. And we don't control the future. So one of the strategies in helping to deal with this is, of course, taking back your control. And we only have control in the present. It doesn't change the situation, but we are talking about taking back some control. And that control lies right here, right now. My actions, my words, my deeds, my thoughts, my attitudes, my mindset. It's here, it's now. It might change in an hour, but that hour is in the future. Tomorrow it might change, but that's in the future. So what I want to do is get back to controlling right here, right now, and get back some control of where is my mind. Am I thinking about the future? Am I worried about this, worried about that? Then we get back to another concept about control the controllables. See, a mentally tough person, somebody who has mastered these skills, they control the controllables. So here I am in Phoenix. I'm thousands of miles away from Minneapolis. I've read the news. I see horrific things. And as a human, I can't help but be moved by that. If I dwell on that, then certainly it's going to affect my mindset. I'm going to either feel down, sad, cry, be upset, lash out, etc. I, at some level, have to step back and say, but what do I control right here, right now? First of all, it's my focus. If I'm truly that susceptible, let's say, one of the things might be, I can't watch that much news. Again, I'm not changing the situation. I'm talking about managing me, my reaction, control the controllables. How do I manage that? And that has to do with taking control of my environment, taking control of things I'm doing, etc. The next extension then is, for those who wish, is trying to influence. Understanding that your influence may not go anywhere. But if you want to influence, understand you're putting energy out to make a difference. I don't care whether that's writing legislatures, writing letters of support to people back in Minneapolis, posting things on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, all those different things. Okay, I may try to influence attitudes, responses, whatever it might be. But understand when we do that, we're putting some energy out, which can be good because I'm taking some control, I'm taking action. On the other hand, if I'm expecting a return on that investment, in other words, I'm expecting something back, it's the wrong approach, because we do not control the response. We don't control whether someone's going to respond negatively to what I posted. We don't control whether someone's going to put a little heart and Love that little comment. I don't control that. So if I'm trying to post something and make it go viral, I don't control whether it goes viral. So those are outside your control. If you're starting to think in that way, you're misguided. Get back to control the controllables. If you want to post and it makes you feel better because you're expressing yourself, you're taking a stance, you're supporting someone, good. That's part of your coping system. I'm taking action.
That's awesome. Gosh, there's so much in
I
there
know.
in that, because you talked about control the controllables. However, and I'll use some examples here and let your brain do its magic. So you have, and again, not ever getting political here. I always want to honor people from all backgrounds, all walks of life, because again, I've experienced prejudice in my own right as a woman, and where I'm from, and different things. So we all have such unique journeys, and we're really all called just to love one another. I mean, that's where the outrage is between COVID and the quarantine. People can't hug and they can't be together, and they have that loss. It's grief. And then not knowing when are we going to get together again? But then when you have, like in Minneapolis, and even with COVID, there's government control that are making decisions for us. You and I have talked about this. You and I both had some trauma around our religious upbringings and backgrounds. And you even talking about, we weren't taught these things that you're teaching kids, teens, and beyond. And like, isn't most of our programming, our subconscious mind is programmed by the time we're 10, right? So if we don't have these tools, and we have all these kind of oppressive, how should I say this, belief systems and rules and people in control and people in charge, and we lash out, isn't that normal? Isn't that human? Like, how do we change that? And you and I have talked about this openly, about our personal journeys, and it was painful. It was painful to wake up one day and realize, wait a minute, I don't know if I believe that anymore. And now what do I do?
Right.
So,
again, within even your question, there's like 100 ways to go.
5,000.
First, let me say this, for any society to exist, there are going to be rules. There are going to be some people in charge. Not everybody can be a leader or in charge. Everyone's got an opinion. In a quote unquote democratic society, opinions are weighed, and then things are voted, and it goes in certain ways at different levels. There are going to be people in charge of police departments. There are going to be people in charge of cities. They're going to look. Life is fitting in to society, and that there's some structure. There are rules. For the most part, I think here's, and this will be me speaking, I think for the most part, we've got the huge percent of the population who conform to those societal norms, who understand we got rules for a reason. I may not even like the rule, but okay, I'll do it anyway. And I think the vast majority of people, I'm an optimist, but I do think the vast majority of people do buy into that. Unfortunately, the news and things that catch our eye tend to highlight those few circumstances that are negative. And then on balance, it outweighs, wait a minute, and it can feel like the entire world's coming down, or it can feel like all these whatever. So I think we have to balance this a little bit, and it does not minimize the horrific things that are happening in Minneapolis. Okay, don't get me wrong. What I'm saying though, in again, coming back to the individual in managing our minds, is if all we do is read horrific things, and that's what we focus on, and that becomes the dominant focal point for us. That's all we read. That's all we talk about with our friends. That's all we complain about, blah, blah, blah. And that's all there is. Then your life is going to be covered in a big dark cloud all the time. And that's not to deny or ignore issues. But now we get back to that control the controllable. Then what are you doing about these issues at whatever level, whether you're a leader or not? We're in a system. We're in society. So it's within that societal norm, that society. What are you doing? What are you comfortable doing to help this, to change it, to make a difference? And again, it can be as simple as things like, I'm going to post something on social media because that's what I believe in. I want people to know that I believe in this. Okay. Yeah. So I think it's a very complex issue.
Well, do you have any, and I know we're going to share later with how people can reach you, and you do have a free assessment that you're being so generous to offer to people if they, especially if they're hurting right now, especially if you're in Minneapolis, or if COVID has really sent you sideways. And, I remember what the recession did to me. I mean, it destroyed me mentally, physically. I made myself sick. I manifested a disease. I'm not ashamed to admit that, because of my belief system, my fear, my worrying about the future. I had lost all of my money. And when that happens, if you don't have food, or you don't know how to find food, a little bit of a problem. I was living in the present, but I was also worried, like, oh my God, how long is this? How I can't survive like this, so there's a lot of fear. And so do you have any quick tips or things that are takeaways that people can apply in the here and now today?
Let me do this. There are several concepts that are very important, so that gives a context to the tips that I'll give. A couple I've already gone over, and that is that, control the controllables. You got to be in control yourself. The other is maintaining your composure. How do you do that? What are your coping mechanisms? Being resilient, that ability to bounce back. We're all going to take a hit, okay, whether it's emotionally, physically, financially, but being able to be resilient, accepting challenges. So life isn't meant to all be easy. That's just not the way it is. So one of the questions to think about here is, how do you accept a challenge in your life, a failure, something that didn't go your way? And how do you remain confident in yourself, your abilities, your ability to cope, your ability to be resilient, to move forward? So if you keep those thoughts in mind as kind of a structure, one of the things to get back to then, as we talk about specific tips, is molding your life and engineering your environment so that you are a peak performer, even in the worst of times. So what we want to do is, you want to do things that will allow you to still perform at the highest level possible, even if it's not what used to be your highest level. Okay, it's kind of like running when it's 100 degrees. It's running to the best of your ability in 100 degrees, knowing that you will run slower than you normally do. All right. So today, whether it's coronavirus or whether it's the things going on in Minneapolis, there are a lot of mental things going on. We may not be all on top of our game 100% right up here, but we still want to maintain some level where we're good, we can cope, and we're not going to just collapse. So in engineering your world, social media is huge here. It has an upside and downside. So if you use it to express, if you use it to find good support, and it's a very positive experience, more power to you. And if it doesn't, you have to stop. Period. Otherwise, you are inviting it into your life when you know it adversely affects you. It's time to engineer your life. So it's re-engineering, saying, you know what, I really don't have to be reading my news feed all day long, or my Twitter feed, or. And what is that? Maybe it's 10 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes versus all day long, or whatever, but engineer it. So social media, engineer it. Don't be a victim to it. You're not a victim, okay? News, certainly that part of that is just how often you read it. Do you have to read it all the time? And again, news itself, limit it. We all want to be informed, but at the same time, how many times can you read 17 different news outlets' versions of what went on? And then you start picking at them, and I mean, I don't know. It's just, it adds more stress, and it doesn't allow you to really function at the top level. Another one, engineering your world, people. Now, again, here's that touchy one, given the coronavirus and everything else, right? But we are social beings. We do need social contact, whether it's virtual, as we are today, or otherwise within your family. Do you have quiet family time at night, or are you all watching TV? Do you have that time that you can sit there and talk about the things that are important to you and share? Do you have that time to nurture or teach some of these skills that I'm talking about to your children, so that they can learn from you as an adult, perhaps, and the things that you've gone through, as opposed to say,
Yeah, I'm going to hire you to homeschool my kids on this stuff. Okay, we'll talk about that later.
Exactly. A couple other quick things. One, goal setting. So one of the things about the future that becomes hairy, scary is I don't know. Unknown is not comfortable for most people. Very few people welcome the unknown. We want knowns. One way to start that is to have goals off in the future saying, I'm going to work towards it. I understand there's still some unknowns out there, but I'm going to work towards something. And in order to get to that outcome goal somewhere in the future, have process goals. That's what am I going to do on a day-to-day basis to reach that outcome goal. If I can stay focused today only on process goals, guess what? I'm living in the present. I'm being productive. It's helping me be a higher performer. And the last thing I'll share is routines. As a human being, we function on routines. If you can just stop right now and you say and look at your life. What do you do during the day? When do you get up? What do you eat? What do you drink? When do you work out? What time do you go to work? If you're traveling to work, or when you did travel to work, do you take the same route every day? Do you park in the same parking spot? Do you go on down? It's routines. One of the things we lost when everyone had to work from home is some of those routines. The coffee shop we used to stop at before we went into work, etc. So one of the ways to regain some of that control is start routines. Have a routine. Don't let it willy-nilly, oh, I'm at home, it doesn't matter, I won't get dressed because I don't have any video conferences today. We need routines. So think about those routines. When are you going to work out? When are you going to do this? Have a schedule in order to get through your day, instead of just kind of aimlessly kind of doing work and then getting up and doing a load of laundry or something.
So you're saying that I shouldn't wear the same clothes for 3 days and not shower. That's not really a good routine.
I was wondering. I could smell something from the west, and I just knew.
No, that's so powerful. And I didn't mean to interrupt. No, if you were.
Well, I didn't want to go on too long. So any questions or whatever, that would be a brief kind of checklist for anyone to just start looking at and saying, what could I take back control on? What could I do today? And of course, part of my coaching is I work really in depth with all those different issues and personalize them because we're all so different.
That's so true. Oh my gosh. You and we've talked about that.
Yeah.
And I appreciate what you talk about goal setting. I talk about that with my sales, training clients all the time. And for you and me too, we became so regimented and structured. I remember, if you can relate to this, and I know you can, but when I was able to do a 3:10 marathon, and all of a sudden I couldn't even eclipse 4 hours, that was brutal to my psyche, man. Yep. Right. Yeah. And injuries would come, and it all, I learned emotional fitness through that process. And I probably could have talked to you about it, so I got through it faster, right? That's why you're here, to help people grow through it faster and compress the time frames. Because I know after the recession, it took me 5 years to mentally and emotionally recover from that, because I didn't have enough money to necessarily hire all the right people. And there's not enough books out there to read or enough affirmations to say. Mm-hmm. The tools that you provide are critical to expedite those things. So one more question that I have for you. And if anybody has any questions, please, I know I'm streaming in a few different venues. Please ask your questions about mental toughness, mindset, how that, emotional fitness or intelligence, that EQ can raise your performance. I mean, this is an opportunity, guys, that could yay. We have a question from Kathy in Toluca, Mexico. What would you suggest as a good routine for an athlete or a musician or a dancer who knows that we still have months left until we can get out and back to whatever new normal routine it will be?
And the first part of that question was what routine?
Yeah, what would you suggest as a good possible routine for those people, like the athletes that you work with that aren't able to perform, or the musicians who aren't able to go out and perform and they're stuck in their rooms or their houses?
So my thing, what I would do is, like for my athletes, I would integrate, since I coach runners and endurance athletes, the first thing is that I am doing, in fact, is time trials. An actual look. It's going to be a mock race. It may be against yourself, but I want you to do the pre-warm-up. I want you to have the same eating habits. I want you to do the whole thing. And I want you to go do this. I want you to time it. Maybe have someone time it with you if social distancing, whatever. But I want an all-out effort that feels like a race. For a performer, that means dress rehearsal. Get it together. Come on. What do you do before you go out on stage? What do you do? How do you dress? What do you talk to yourself? What kind of, do you do a visualization beforehand? Do you do whatever? Okay. What's your little warm-up routine with your instrument? Okay. Now go out, find a stage, or do it in your backyard, or do it for your neighbors. Sit down, like it, and make a real performance. So part of this is integrating real performances, fake real performances, so that you have something, one, to look forward to, but it keeps you in the practice of being on and having to show your skills.
Awesome. Kathy, I hope that helped. And if anybody, I'm just going to go ahead and put this in there. Dean has his contact information and an opportunity for you to have a phone session with him, and it's complimentary, right, Dean?
Yes, correct.
Perfect. So I'll post that in there so you guys have the ability to reach out to him. And while I'm waiting for any potential additional questions, what I also wanted to ask, because I ask this from everyone, because the theme is healthy and wealthy and wise, and I have my own passion behind that. And I'd like to know, when you hear that phrase, Dean, healthy and wealthy and wise, what does that mean to you?
Okay. Well, healthy, first of all, I think is relative to the person, but for me, it doesn't have to be running marathons. It's about feeling vibrant, alive, and physically and mentally able to handle whatever comes your way. That's being healthy. Wealthy, again, I think it's relative. Not everyone has the same means or the same goals. So I think it almost comes down to a question. Can you do what you really want to do? If you can go, whether it's travel or whether it's, buying certain things in your life, if you can do that, then to me, that's wealthy. Wise. Are you learning from life? Both yours and others. Learn vicariously, please. You don't have to go through all the misery. Not repeating mistakes, and then sharing what you learn and not keeping it to yourself. That's true wisdom, I think.
Wow, that was awesome. And there was no wrong answer. It's like we talked about. Everyone's unique.
I thought it was a test for a minute. I was sweating. I was getting a little anxiety over that.
No, well, you're wise beyond your years, and I think the world of you. And as we close it out, I haven't seen any other questions. If you guys have any last minute, we're about to wrap it up. And I just want to thank you, especially, like I said, this message is so timely. I hope that if people are watching the replay or finding us on YouTube later, because we're kind of in it for the long haul. We don't know exactly what this new normal is, but it's a new normal. And 2020 is definitely going to be impacting people in 2021, 2022, 2023. So I implore you guys, whether you reach out to Dean, and he's amazing. Again, you do not have to be an athlete to work with him or reach out to him. Just don't do, like you said, learn vicariously through others. Don't make the mistake that I made in 2008. I decided, nope, I'm going to just muscle through. I mean, I had some mentors, right? But it wasn't the same as working one-on-one with someone like you, and it was painful. It was brutal, because I was sort of reliving my childhood traumas and bringing that forward into my marriage. And God knows that they talk about people that the divorce rate's going to go up because of this pandemic, and it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to. If you're equipped with the right tools, I know that Dean can help you, and hope that you guys can take him up on his offer. Any other last comments, Dean, before I wrap it up?
I think you said it all. It's been a pleasure, and I really appreciate you having me on.
Awesome. So as just a gentle reminder, if this is your first time, again, tuning in live and just happen to stumble upon it, you can subscribe to future podcast interviews and my monologues each week. They're all, again, about health, wealth, and wisdom. And I'm super excited. I just launched my podcast not too long ago, and I'm actually going to be having a very, very special guest next week. So I have every so often I'll bring someone who has impacted my life in huge ways and has has a really, really deep story that goes with health, wealth, and wisdom. And my first special featured guest of that is next Thursday. Normally, these interviews, like today with Dean, it's every Friday at 12:30 Pacific time. But next week, I'm interviewing the founders of Business Network International, Dr. Ivan Meisner and his wife Beth. They have both of them beat cancer. So they're going to share their health journey with that. They both have they founded BNI together, and that's become a world-class organization with about 300,000 members in, I forget if it's 90 countries now. There's thousands and thousands of chapters around the world. So they're visionaries. They have multiple businesses now. They hang out with the likes of Richard Branson on his island. So, they're kind of wealthy. And then, of course, the wisdom piece and what they've learned going through that journey, they're going to be sharing that. So tune in again next Thursday, June 4th at 11. Bring your popcorn, bring your notebook. It's going to be a good time. So again, thanks guys. Thank you, Dean. I hope everyone has a healthy and wealthy and wisdom-filled week ahead. Thank you so much for your time. Bye-bye for now.